Hello and welcome to today's podcast for SystemTwoDevelopment. We have a great one today. We're going to talk a little bit about choices, about societies, about Munch, the painter. And so stay tuned for that. On with the show. Okay, today, topic number 1. Can you win a debate with facts? And I think we've been talking about this, and I think ideally, this would be the case, right? That you could win a debate with facts. What do you think, Elias? Is it possible?
I don't think so, but often people, often debaters say that it's not about winning. Like, it's not about convincing the two debaters. It's about convincing the audience or the people who are on the fence.
Yeah.
But I think ideally you should be able to win a debate with facts.
Yeah, in an ideal world.
Because if you don't agree with that, I don't think you're just talking over each other.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Because I've been reading a book lately called The 21 Lessons for the 21st Century. And he talks a lot about this, like that society is not really based on facts. And we're not really trying to find out, like in elections, for example, we're not really trying to find out the most rational and the best solution. We're just trying to find the solution that most people feel is the best solution. Like, we're trying to figure, like when we host elections, we're trying to figure out what the population feels, and that's the ultimate authority is feelings and free will, if you could call it that.
Well, I think that's interesting when, like, if the population is not rational, you'll end up with non-rational leaders as well.
Like Trump.
Maybe.
Yeah, jumping on the bandwagon on Trump. 5 years later.
I guess people found Trump interesting because he's not like a mainstream typical president.
Yeah.
And I guess that says that the population wants something that's new, because they don't have trust in the mainstream media and the mainstream government. So this guy's supposedly not that.
But I remember there was I don't remember what year it is, but it's like one election in the States. I don't remember his name, but he made this after he didn't win the presidential election, and after that he made this video where he explains about global warming and stuff. Do you remember that? Like, he had like this talk, and he filmed it, and it was parodied by South Park and stuff like that. But that's a guy that's obviously very about the facts. It would be better if I remember his name. But
is it the guy that South Park makes fun of often?
I don't think
he's a character in South Park. Al Gore?
Al Gore!
Yeah.
That's it!
Yeah.
How did you know?
I knew from South Park.
Yeah. So Al Gore, he who did he run against? Was it Bush or something like that? And he probably, I didn't really follow that election, but I would assume that he was like a factual, rational guy. Even like, he made this movie afterwards. It's all about facts about global warming. Oh, look at this, the temperature is rising, it's gonna be this high, and he had this graph, and I remember he had like a lift on stage, and he had to get on the lift and take it to the top to get to the top of the graph. Like, this is how hot it's gonna be. You should be really scared. Look at all these rational facts. And obviously it didn't work, or I mean, it worked a little bit, I guess, but yeah, that's like how it did not win an election. You can't win an election with facts.
Well, I don't know about Al Gore, or like what he stood for specific. Like if he only stood for climate change,
yeah,
I'm not sure if that's a good. Because I mean, some people care, of course, especially today. People care about climate change, but what about all the other things that you're supposed to care about in society?
Yeah, so many things, and usually the best story wins, right? But for example, with flat earthers, you've been researching this lately. I mean, it's pretty obvious that they don't really care about the facts. You can't get into a debate with them. With
I wouldn't say that they don't care about facts, because they believe they found their own facts. Kind of like they're saying that they're using science and proofs to prove that the Earth is flat. So they're coming from this with the point of view that like their arguments are correct and their facts are correct.
Their facts are the best facts.
Yeah. But yeah, why they don't listen to counter arguments, or why counterfacts or like other proofs that the Earth is round. It's kind of it's almost like they have this it's like instead of going where the facts lead you, they already went there and they're trying to fit facts to go where they want to be. It's like the other way around.
Yeah, but don't normal people also do this? Like scientists, for example?
I think we're biased to do it.
Yeah.
But like I am also biased towards this, I guess. But I try not to do it, or I try to catch myself before. Like if I realize I'm doing this, if I realize I'm trying to prove something I know is right based on feelings, I try to step back and look at, well, maybe it's not right in the first place.
Yeah, because my reaction when I'm confronted by this dilemma, let's call it, is always to believe that, or I just conclude that, okay, so there's two conflicting facts here, and they're both probably, maybe one of them is true, but there's no way to find out which one is, so it doesn't really matter, and I can basically believe the story that I like the best. Or like, for example, with let's say in nutrition, some people say, oh, you should eat vegetarian, that's the most healthy thing you can do, and then other people are like, no, you should just eat meat. And just like low carb it up, you know. So obviously both of them can't be true, so or both are true at the same time, and then it doesn't really matter. Just like pick one, you know, pick the one you like the best.
I don't know so much about nutritional science, but I guess that's just because we don't understand which one is backed more up by evidence and which one is not.
Because I think, or at least I read this somewhere, that the studies, the nutritional studies that our society is based on, the stuff that we learn in school and stuff, it comes from the scientists that made the best stories. They were just like, oh, low cholesterol, that's really bad for you. You can It clogs up your heart and stuff like that, and therefore you shouldn't eat fatty meats, because that makes cholesterol and blah blah blah.
Oh.
That's like people just hook onto it and just like, oh, this is a great story, I really believe it.
It kind of reminds me of whenever there's an article on NRK,
Yeah,
our national news,
national television.
yeah, or the website,
Yeah,
about like the scientists have figured out that smør, butter is
bad for you.
bad for you, or it's
Yeah.
good for you, or something
Yeah,
like
yeah.
this. Then the effect is that butter is sold out immediately, and then
I remember that. Yeah.
And I think it's happened a few times with different products. I think milk, maybe,
Mm.
and at least butter. So now there's like butter is maybe good for you. But I also heard
I like to
if
think so.
if you mix carbs and fat together, it can be bad. But if you only do fat, then it's better than mixing up.
Yeah, I've heard that as well.
Yeah.
So that's like one of, I mean, I don't know if that's how most scientists or sciences work, like this nutritional, because nutrition is like such a
It's very complex.
very complex. You
many
can't really measure
variables.
it,
Yeah.
so it's like it's hard. But I got the feeling that a lot of other sciences also are the same. It's like it's so complex. It's so hard to find out what's the truth.
I think not. I don't think physics, for example, is the same as nutrition. It's. I think nutritional science is a bit like predicting the weather.
Yeah.
It's complicated because there's too many variables,
Mm?
and so you end up with more like statistical. It's like a statistical problem versus, for example, physics is more
Deterministic.
deterministic. But then again, quantum mechanics is also a bit statistical.
Right.
But I think it's less complex. Quantum mechanics is less complex than nutritional science.
What, really?
I think so. I mean, complex as in not to understand it, but there's less things involved.
Like like randomness?
Yes, even though I think quantum mechanics is I mean, it is based on statistics, but
Quantum mechanics?
but it has less variables than nutritional science. And same with weather. But so in that sense, I think it's less complex.
Yeah, because I heard, quantum computers, one of the things they've just become so complex that they can model a caffeine molecule. I remember, like, either it was like just a caffeine molecule, or how a caffeine molecule affects the body or something like that. Some complex thing that regular computers are really bad at calculating.
Yeah, they're better at doing. It's kind of ironic, I guess, but they're better at doing statistical analysis than classical computers, I guess, in some sense. But I think, well, it's the same like with AI, and how AI works is also very complex.
Oh yeah, like algorithms.
Yeah,
like Google's search and stuff like that.
Not just search, but for example, the AlphaFold.
Yeah.
Have you heard about this?
No.
It's a project to predict how proteins, or how DNA folds into proteins, I think.
Yeah.
Or maybe how proteins fold or something. It's a very it's a very complex thing to figure out. So it needs a lot of computational power. But so this AlphaFold AI has managed to kind of predict how these things fold into these things by very high accuracy. But how it works is very...
They don't know.
Yeah, it's just...
It's a black box?
Weights. Yeah, it's just a black box.
That is interesting. Maybe we are just a black box, you know? You thought about that?
I guess.
Okay.
Like how the brain works is...
Yeah, how the brain works. That's like a black box, right?
Yeah, it's like on a higher level or larger scale. It's a black box, but when you look, we kind of understand well how physics works, how things interact with each other. But the problem is like when you scale it up, how does it all work together? It's the same with the weather, I guess. Because there's so many variables involved.
So, can you win a debate with facts?
Well, I would say no. Because ideally yes, but no. The best story wins.
The best story.
Yeah. Or the guy who speaks with the most confidence, or.
Yeah, it's too bad. It's gotta be like that, man. I always because I don't really vote, for example. I don't really believe in democracy and all of that. And part of the reason is that I don't feel like I know anything about politics. So why are they coming here and asking me what I think in this political in whatever political case or political election? I don't really know what any of the parties stand for. I don't know what the political topics are. I don't really care. So why are you coming here and asking me? Why is it so important to get my opinion on something when I don't know anything about it, you know? So it was really interesting to read about this, that's not really what we're not really trying to find the best solution. We're not really trying to figure out the most rational and optimal solution to any political case. We're just trying to figure out what people are feeling.
Well, you could say that if you figure out what people are feeling in a society, then that's okay. Maybe there's some truth to it. It's a bit like, I think you mentioned this example before. Like if you have a jar of many things or like balls in it.
Oh,
like
yeah.
If you ask enough people.
Yeah, if you have like a jar of marbles.
Yeah, marbles. Yeah.
And you're asking people how many marbles is in this jar, and if you ask 1,000 people, they will come, like their average answer will be really close to the real answer. But
so maybe that's one of the.
Yeah, I mean that is an interesting case, but is it? Because we know that's a very factual thing to do. How many marbles is in this jar? But like, for example, what's the best diet? For example, there's not really an answer, maybe. So,
well, so on one hand you have like the low carb, and then on the other side you have a lot of carb. Maybe the answer is
a lot of carb.
Yeah. Maybe the answer is somewhere in between, or like,
you just said if you mix it, then that's the worst. Even worse. It's better to eat either either just fat or just carbs.
True. But the answer lies somewhere in that space.
It sure does.
Because we know that we can't survive eating rocks, right?
Right.
So we figure that out.
Ooh, trial and error, baby. We figured. Someone tried it. Can you survive eating rocks
or dirt or like yeah?
They found out you can't.
Yeah.
But I feel like you sort of can know or like feel. I always think about like dogs when you have food, they know instantly and they will eat it. But if you have, let's say, grass, they also know and they're like, oh, I can't eat it. And they're not interested in it. How do we know that something is edible, if you know what I mean?
I feel like now we're kind of speaking as if we're just born into this world without any knowledge about anything, but it's not really. I mean, we've evolved by eating stuff.
Yeah.
So we have a feeling on what's edible and what's not.
An intuition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you could argue that this intuition is a good.
Oh, an ambulance.
That intuition is a good. It's kind of backed up by facts because of evolution.
Do you think where does intuition come from?
Well, I would say it comes from evolution.
Yeah, it's like
we've evolved intuition.
Yeah. Do you think it's like paths in our brain that are like already carved out, that just like grow really naturally? And
are you talking about our base intuitions or the intuitions that we?
Yeah, for example, in this, if we can intuit what is edible, for example, do you think that's like carved into the brain?
Yeah, just like dogs.
Yeah, so dogs and humans have this carved into their brain, like physically.
To some extent.
Yeah.
I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Well, I think that's a pretty good conclusion to this topic. You cannot win debates with facts. Last week I was at the National Museum here in Oslo, and it's a very interesting museum. You should go, by the way. But I came across this one room that was, I think it was called Northern Lights or something like that, or Lights in the North. It was full of paintings by not so famous artists. I guess they're kind of famous in the art world, but not like famous. And they were really good at painting lights. Like they painted landscapes and stuff, and you could really see that they had very good techniques, and they painted some beautiful paintings with really almost like photorealistic lights. And there was one painting called The Breakfast, or something like that, just like some people sitting around the breakfast table eating breakfast, and it looked almost photorealistic, like it was so and very beautiful, the lights and stuff. But I was also thinking, like, these artists are not so famous, and if you compare it with, for example, Munch, which is very famous, like world famous, and the Scream is like international icon, but that guy, he was not really that good of a painter. And he didn't really care about technique and stuff. He just like painted whatever he felt like, and that's the guy. He has his own room. He doesn't have to his own room in the National Museum. He doesn't have to share with a lot of other people, and he doesn't have doesn't need to have a theme like Northern Lights. He just has the monk room. Here's monk,
Yeah.
And it's like it's so interesting to me that this guy who I get the feeling that he's not really a trained artist. He doesn't really care. He buys just the cheapest paints that he can get a hold of, and the cheapest pencils and brushes, and he just like paints on cardboard. And that's like one of the reasons why the Scream and all his paintings are so they have to really try to shield them from light and stuff because they're so fragile, just because he didn't really buy proper equipment. And it's so interesting that this guy is, you know, a national hero and looked up to so much, and these other guys are just like, because you could see in the Northern Lights room that, you know, these paintings, they probably spent weeks, maybe even months, or maybe even years painting these, and like breakfast table and trying to make it realistic. But it's like it doesn't really have you know, that mystery that Munch has, for example. You know, that you can like look at a painting and you're like, oh, what does this mean, you know? And there's a guy in front and he's like, oh.
But so do you think Munch would be a better artist if he had better technique?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
Because I feel like often in the art world it's like either you have good technique and you have bad art, I guess.
Yeah.
Or you have good art but bad.
It's like either
technique.
or.
Yeah. But I don't think that's the case.
The Mona Lisa, for example, Da Vinci, he was known for his technique, you know. That's one of the things that he's known for. And you know, the Mona Lisa smile, he painted really, really thin layers upon layers upon layers upon layers just to get the proper gradient. And he spent, you know, maybe several years on the Mona Lisa. So that's like an example maybe of where the meaningful art meets the technically good art. But I think because a lot of artists, like, that's what the feeling I got from the Northern Lights room, like these guys were just practicing. They were just like, oh, I'm gonna capture this breakfast table as good as I can get it, as realistically as I can get it. And they didn't really put anything into it. It's not about anything. They're just sitting there. So it's just like, oh, this is, you could walk past it and you're just like, oh, this is really cool. And that's it. But a Munch painting, you walk past it and it's just like, there's just like a lady and she's tearing her hair out. It's just like, oh, well, what's she on about, you know? And why is she in the forest? And why is it so gloomy? This.
But I also wonder, like, how much of this is by chance. Just if Munch existed today, do you think he would be as famous?
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
Well, I feel like this is about story versus facts.
Yeah.
Again, kind of. Like, the best story wins.
Yeah. And you think Munch has a good story?
I don't know Munch's story, like, so much, but I guess.
Yeah, because, I mean, it's not the most interesting story. It's just like, he seemed just a normal guy. But I guess he has, like, a mythical kind of status. People don't really know what he thought and who he was. They know a few things about his life. But I'm also thinking, you know, because the guy who painted the breakfast table, he probably has an interesting story, you know. If people were to dig in his past, and or maybe not, maybe he was just a boring guy, I don't know. But I also, just the paintings by themselves, the Munch painting is more interesting than than the breakfast table one. But there's also another painting from the National Museum, I mean, which is really good, like well techniqued and rendered and stuff. It's the bridal procession in Hardanger, something like that, which is like one of the most famous paintings from the National Museum. And that's like a painting that's really known for the technique, and it's beautiful, you know, and it looks so not photorealistic, but it looks like even better than reality. It's like it's the romanticism, national romanticism, and but it also tells the story, you know, because you're looking at this like a bridal procession, and they're like shooting guns and they're wearing bunads and riding in boats down the fjord. It's so perfect, but also you kind of ask yourself, what's going on here, you know? Who are these people, and why, like, because they just got married, and you kind of there's obviously a story there that you, and the painting sort of takes you in. So I guess that's also a thing where the technique meets the story and the meaning.
I would say also Vermeer also has a good
Vermeer,
technique.
yeah,
good technique, and also I guess a good story.
Yeah, definitely. So, but I don't know if Munch, if he had better technique, do you think he would be as famous?
I don't know. Could be. It could also be that it's more about chance.
Yeah.
That, and of course, we just make him more and more famous, kind of.
We do, yeah. Yeah. It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy.
I'm just trying to think of an example. Like, if for some reason there's a satellite from, I don't know, some other civilization somewhere out there in space, lands on Earth, and there's no aliens or anything. It's just like a thing with a lot of art from this other civilization, if they make art, and all of the art is like it's like straight up from DeviantArt or something, like something that looks very bad, or just
it looks bad. It looks bad to us, or
to us,
it's bad for them.
Bad. Like it's just straight up bad art. But it's so intriguing because it's from a different civilization, and so all that doesn't matter.
Yeah, it becomes famous, even though we wouldn't like it.
Yeah, because there's a lot of mysticism behind, like who sent this, like what civilization, what kind of civilization is this, and what kind of we're trying to figure out how they used to be, or I guess the same with the old art. We're trying to figure out how these people used to live, and what their morals were, and how they used to talk to each other, and how it was, and that's part of the. Or I guess that's part of the big mystery that makes it more artsy than it really is.
Yeah, the story becomes better. It's also when famous people make something, it's always more interesting than, you know, if regular people do it, or like just like an Instagram post. If freaking The Rock post something on Instagram, it could be like the worst post ever, but you know, it's gonna get a lot of views and likes and stuff like that, and people are in comments. But if I post something on Instagram, people are just like, ignore. You know? So unfair.
I guess it's like, the thing that makes it interesting is to figure out what the person was thinking.
Yeah.
Mostly, but like that's the main
Yeah.
point of interest.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, that concludes this topic. The monk story.
Okay, so the next topic is too much choice bad or good? And what's the balance, I guess? That's what
What's
I
the
want.
balance?
Yeah. Because no choice is obviously bad. Too much choice.
Yeah.
I feel like society accepts that too much choices can also be bad.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much aware of this. A lot of market research as well that supports this, that if you put too much choices into things, like if you have an ice cream store, that's like the classical example, and you have 200 flavors, it's too many.
Yeah.
And you're gonna sell less ice cream because people can't make a choice. And even if they do make a choice, they're often less satisfied with the choice they made. But if you have like 6 flavors, then it's like, oh, I like this one the best. And you're more confident with the choice you made because it was the best out of the 6.
Yeah, so that's the average person, I guess.
Yeah.
But so some people really prefer more choice than others.
Yeah.
And like some people are easily affected by if there's too much choice, they just nope.
Yeah. And we'll be talking about this as well. You know, if you go to really fancy restaurants, you don't get a menu or any choices.
Yeah.
You have to eat whatever the chef makes, and that's like a part of why it costs so much. Like the chef is like, oh, I made all the choices for you, and that's why you pay me.
I'm not sure about that.
You're not sure about that?
I don't think that's the only.
It's not the only one, but
yeah, you probably didn't mean the only reason, but but I think in restaurants, I think the choice thing is also rooted in how much the chef can actually make. Like, it's better to have the chef specialize in a few select dishes than just make everything.
Yeah.
So that affects the quality of the food.
Then it becomes like better food. If they just make few things.
But in a way, if you want to eat out,
you
have. If you go outside a restaurant, it's just you have a lot more choice than you need to, I guess.
Outside a restaurant?
Yeah, because you have to pick a restaurant.
Oh,
and
you have to pick a restaurant.
Yeah, and each restaurant has a few choices or many or.
Yeah.
So in that sense, like, should we have fewer restaurants? Maybe we should.
Or should each restaurant have fewer dishes?
Yeah.
Because I think, like, when a restaurant tries to do too many things, that's like the worst restaurants. Like if they have Italian and kebabs and hamburgers and Chinese food. It's like, obviously, they can't do that.
There's a place near where I live, which is called, I think it's called Pizza 222222222. Because that's their number.
That's the name?
Yeah.
Oh, 2222. Okay, yeah. That's a phone number. Yeah.
But they serve Chinese food, and they serve pizza, and they serve kebab, and they serve hamburgers, and I think they also serve Italian food. I think.
Yeah.
They just serve everything.
Yeah.
But I think they just there's no, like, I tried a few times.
Yeah.
It's like, it's okay, it's cheap.
Yeah.
But I don't feel like they put any effort into any. They just make the food.
Of course. But I think also another interesting thing is that I think a part of the success factor of places like Starbucks and Subway is that they put unnecessary choices into into, you know, the whole experience. It's like, oh, what kind of size do you want? Do you want a venti or a tall or a grande?
Yeah.
Oh, she's like, no, I want a tall. You know. Oh, what kind of milk do you want? Do you want flat? Do you want soy? Do you want, you know, whatever? And it's just like, because at least in game design, you know, this is like what do you call it, like a mechanic, like putting choices in, or what we call autonomy. Like you in this world, you are able to make choices.
Yeah.
And
artificial control, kind of. Or?
Yeah, artificial. Like you get to feel like you're in control. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's like a part of the success of Starbucks and Subway as well. It's just like, because people in a lot of places, they don't have any autonomy. Like if you have just a regular job, you have to do what your boss says. That's how you get money. And like, yeah, all day you have to do whatever somebody else tells you to. And then when you get to go into Subway and you get to decide what kind of bread to get,
you get to boss like, around, like, I want this, I want
then
this.
you to the sandwich artist, just like, hey, can I have some mayo on that? Some barbecue sauce. You get to feel like the boss. Exactly. And that's like a part of what feels good, you know? Just like, oh, I decided what kind of meat is on my sandwich.
Could be. I'm not sure if I feel like it's a little bit like armchair psychology territory, I think.
Do you think?
Yeah. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I want to have choice, and sometimes I feel like I don't want to have any choice.
Yeah.
I think at least one of the most, apart from Subway not tasting any good, I think the most annoying thing is like when I ask for the daily sub, they still ask me what I want, like what kind of bread do you want, what kind of topping do you want, what kind of just
That's one of my gripes with Subway as well. Like, I don't want any choices. Just make the thing. Just make a sandwich, you know, and I'll eat it.
And sometimes I feel like this happened a few times where, maybe not in Subway, but in some restaurants, I'm just like, okay, just get me a beer that suits the dish, whatever you recommend. But they still wanna, like, okay, we have this, we have this beer, we have this beer, we have this beer, we have this beer. Which one do you? Like some people really can't handle
making a decision.
Yeah. Maybe that's kind of like a proof or a point. Like, I don't want to make a decision.
No.
And the waitress doesn't even want to make a decision. So maybe this choice thing is nobody wants to make a choice.
But that's also a thing that's been said about millennials. That they don't want to make a choice, and like they don't want to commit to a sexual partner. They don't want to commit to a job. They don't want to commit to an education. They just want to pick and choose and just like try things.
But isn't that making a choice?
Huh?
Isn't that making a choice?
Making a choice?
Or you mean like doesn't that say that they don't know what they want and they want to choose?
They don't know what to choose, and they don't know what they want. But also another thing, they don't want to close any doors. Because when you make a choice, like if you choose someone to spend your life with, you're also excluding everyone else. It's just like, oh, this is the one, you know, nothing else. That's like the hardest thing. And I think, you know, Jordan Peterson, he talks a lot about this, you know, in the Peter Pan story, because Pan, it means everything, and Peter Pan is like a character that doesn't make any he doesn't dare to make any choices, and he wants to live as a child his whole life, and in the story, Wendy comes into Neverland, and he gets to he could choose to spend his life with Wendy, but he decides to not make a choice and to just stay in Neverland, where he doesn't have to do whatever. He doesn't have to grow up. And that's like Jordan Peterson, it says that this is like the curse of the millennial in a way.
Never commit to a choice.
Never commit to a choice, exactly. And never close any doors. Just like try to keep all the doors open. And that's like a way to live a miserable life. And so therefore, like, for me, I really like if a restaurant made all the choices for me. That would be really good.
As long as you trust the restaurant.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a good restaurant, it's a good restaurant,
I wonder how the food would taste at this pizza. If I just come inside and say, like, give me the best dish you have.
Yeah. I went to this taco place it was a very new one, and they had such a complicated menu. I didn't really understand anything, and it was all in Mexican and stuff for some reason. And so I said to the waiter or something, I just said, "Oh, I would like a taco." And he was just like, "What? A taco? What kind of taco? What do you want? Do you want this one? It has this?" Or, and I was like, "Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna go somewhere else."
Yeah, you should have said, "Give me your best.
Give me the best one, the tastiest one." I could have done that. Yeah, I think I've done that as well. But yeah, so that's choices. Or do you feel like this is the?
Well, there's one thing about choice. I feel. I think choice has kind of been stigmatized a little bit, because I think there's a way to give a lot of choices if you present them in a nice way.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think there are other things you can improve before you make a lot of choices. I mean, a game, for example, has infinite choices, right? If you think about it.
How?
Throughout the game,
Yeah.
you make many choices,
Right? It's not infinite, is it?
Skyrim has infinite. Like, you can put this thing here, or you can put this thing there. And, like,
Yeah.
So in theory, like,
Yeah.
you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and like if you play Zelda, for example, you have to create a new save, like a save slot, and you have to make a name, and that name could be anything.
Yeah,
right? Yes.
And like,
that
to,
way,
to do this quest, you have to walk from A to B, and you could walk like around, or you could walk like this way, or you could walk. But so my point is just how it's presented. It's
the choices.
The choices are like, I guess the default name in Zelda is Link, or is it blank? Or is it the name of the Sega game?
I think it's blank.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember. I think you just asked, what's your name or something like that. You have to write it. It doesn't say Link.
Oh, okay. At least I know in Final Fantasy 7, when they introduce a new character, the default name is the name that like the default, like Cloud is called Cloud.
Yeah.
But you could erase it and
write whatever.
Yeah.
Poopy head.
So, I mean, you get the choice, but if you don't feel like it, you can just don't make the choice.
to have nice defaults.
Yeah. And it's obvious, like when you go from point A to point B to complete a quest, like the level designer can design a path that looks, it's the most obvious path to go from A to B.
Yeah.
But you can go around if you want, if you feel like making choices in the moment.
And I get like the Stanley Parable. It's all about this, like messing with the player's head. What is the correct choice? Trying to just mess with the choice making. That's like the entire game. I would say. Oh, you should go in here. Are you gonna go in there, or are you going in the other door? You know.
And I would say, for example, Skatteetaten, our tax.
Norwegian
system, yeah.
Taxes.
I mean, in the past, it used to be just like this gigantic form of things you fill in.
Many choices.
Too many choices. But now it's kind of specialized, like, okay, are you doing this kind of thing? If so, here are
your choices.
Okay, yeah, but not like all the choices at once, but like, okay, are you this kind of thing? And then, okay, yes, next. Then you get these things, okay, and then this, and then next. And
do you think they learn that from video games?
Could be. I think they learn from web design in general.
Yeah.
Like user experience on the web.
And web design learn it from video games.
Yeah, to some extent, I think they both learned. Like
from each other?
Yeah, from I think a lot of web design has been figured out outside of video games.
Yeah.
And a lot of video game design things have been figured out outside of web design.
Yeah.
I think it's good to merge them, I think. I think we're kind of
heading towards that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Like UI design in games has always been a bit secondary.
Yeah. I always feel like UI in games, they always try to make their own stuff, you know. And their own, panel backgrounds and stuff like that. And it's usually a little bit shitty. But I think it's gotten better. And maybe it is because they've taken inspiration from the web.
Because why would they focus on, it's not the menu is just a secondary or maybe very low priority.
Yeah.
The most important thing is the gameplay, right? But on the web, the highest priority is the UI.
Yeah.
And so Google and Apple and all these big companies have put effort into researching what's the best, most intuitive design.
Yeah, that is interesting as well, because my philosophy in this is always, or usually, the operating system should just make the choice for me in a lot of cases. Like I don't want to decide what kind of font to use, for example, in the OS, or how the buttons should look. But for example, on Linux, they give you that choice.
But they I mean, yeah, you can change a font on Linux and how it looks. But in practice, all the distribution of Linux, they make the choice for you. And I would say it's the same with Windows.
Yeah.
You can change, or maybe I think you can change the font on Windows.
In the
system font, I think.
In the settings.
Yeah. So if you want to change the font,
maybe you could.
You can do that if you want.
Huh.
Otherwise, just
use the default.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
But I mean, some Linux users really want to control everything from like the kernel and which desktop environments they want to use and how they want to set up the desktop environment. But most users don't really care about these things. They just download the most popular distribution and run with the defaults. Because
another interesting thing, a little bit back to what we were talking about earlier, because I read this 21 lessons for the 21st century, and he talks about because we believe in the democracy, that the voter is always right. Whatever the voters choose, that's the correct thing. And also in free markets, we believe that the customer is right. Whatever the customer says, that's the truth in a way. And also in software, we believe that the user is right. Whatever the user says, that's like the correct decision, or we should try to make the software to fit whatever the user says.
But in games?
In games?
I thought you were going there.
Oh! No, I wasn't. Are you going there?
No.
What do we believe in games? That the player is always right?
Not necessarily.
No, but I think a lot of... But that's the thing, because, I mean, obviously not every business believes that the customer is right. And not every country believes that the voter is right. Or... Because that, or for example, Apple doesn't really believe that the user is right. They make whatever they want, And a lot of game developers as well, they don't really care what the players say. They just make make the game that they want to make. So I guess it's like that's like the split, People that believe that the users and the customers and the voters are right, and people who believe that the the game is right, the product is right, the country is right.
Yeah. But so again, it's like, if like in a free market, if you only do what the users or the customers want, you'll end up with like exploiting intuition and
you'll end up with McDonald's.
And so the other question is, okay, so what's good for society? Is McDonald's good for society in the long run?
Oh.
So how do you balance all of these things? But I would say Apple is listening to some extent.
Yeah, definitely. At least lately, or after Steve Jobs died.
But I felt like Apple was going down a bit in quality and experience.
When?
Before the M1, I think.
Before the M1, yeah.
Yeah,
they've been on a downward trajectory.
Yeah.
And I think that's because, at least that's what I feel, that it's because they lost their vision and they started just doing whatever the users want.
No, because I don't think that's like, for example, people will always be complaining about the ports on Mac.
Yeah.
But they never seem to listen.
Yeah.
But then
now they did.
Yeah. And then people are happy.
Yeah.
Well, that's one thing. But maybe the M1 thing was more of I don't think people would be asking for a ARM powered Mac.
No.
Because if the main problem with the new architecture is that all the previous software will stop working, right?
Yeah.
So it's not really like, I think Windows tried to introduce a version of Windows and ARM laptops and everything, but you couldn't really run Photoshop and things like that on it, so it never caught on.
Yeah.
So as long as the user can run their existing applications, I think... what am I getting at here?
they're happy as long as
it works.
That they can do what they want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But so Apple managed to introduce a new architecture and some software to run old existing software.
Yeah.
That was actually good.
Mm.
Well, I would suspect that if they surveyed users,
Mm-hmm.
if they want a new architecture on the Mac, I would think they would say no.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, because this is one of the things that just like, it's not really about what the product is. It's about how the product is. Like if you ask if you want ARM architecture, you just say no. But if you're asked if you want ARM architecture that is like blah 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 x times as powerful as the previous architecture and such energy performance better, it's just like, yeah, maybe. It's just like buttery smooth, you know. But yeah, so I guess Apple is still kind of there. They still kind of have the vision. Okay, that's it for today's show. Thank you for watching so far. You're a great audience. And we'll see you next time. And then we'll have, other very interesting topics. I think you're gonna love those, right? So stay tuned for that. And catch you on the flip-flop.